Here, the fourth in a series of webinars welcoming our guest instructors from Sätergläntan who are coming to visit the United States this summer, early summer, in celebration of the 100th anniversary of the Sätergläntan Institute for Craftwork in Dalarna, Sweden. This project has been funded generously by the American Scandinavian Foundation and is a really wonderful opportunity to do some sharing across wide distances and culture of the love of learning about craft. Places like the American Swedish Institute and North House Folk School have been around and teaching handcraft for a fraction of the time that Sätergläntan has, and we feel really fortunate to learn from educational institutions elsewhere and to be able to welcome their instructors. So we are in a webinar. This is being recorded, so if you can't see your face, that's why. But we hope to hear from you and answer your questions. You can use the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen to enter your questions, and then we'll come back to them as we go. There's lots of opportunity for discussion today, so feel free to drop information in there. Nikki from the American Swedish Institute will be answering questions in chat and sharing links as appropriate. So, and we'll share a link to the recording of this webinar after we've wrapped up here. So if it seems like something you want to share with people that you know, you'll be able to do that following the conclusion. So I think that's all of my housekeeping for the moment. So we can get started with the main event. It's my pleasure to welcome Johan Säfström from Sätergläntan today to join us. Johan is the head of the blacksmithing program at Sätergläntan and will be visiting both North House and American Swedish Institute to teach students in the US in June. He started his official blacksmithing education at Sätergläntan as a student, which is a pretty remarkable thing that happens when a school is 100 years old. You get to train your own teaching staff. Went on to study at the Iron Academy and then had a personal practice for some time. He now is primarily a teacher at the school. So, Johan, take it away.
Thank you, yes. Yeah. Yeah, I'm looking really forward to come over to you and have some classes and see your places and what you're doing. It's going to be great. Looking so forward to it. All right. As I said, well, I've been a student here and on another school, and on the other school I took my journeyman's exam. Might be good to say, and then I've been teaching for quite a while on another school as well, a bit up north from here. Bäckedals folkhögskola as a blacksmith teacher there as well. But now since 2 years, I've been here as one of the head teachers on the blacksmith orientation, along with Linnea Lindgren, my good colleague. And I live here in nearby Sätergläntan in Leksand with my partner and our little son. So what do you say? Yes, should we start with the slide?
Sounds good.
And then I'll come back to talk about the blacksmith course a bit more. Right. You can see on the big red arrow where we are right now. It's actually the middle of Sweden. That doesn't show, but the north of Sweden starts here. The ones who live in the north of Sweden will disagree on this, but all right. So we're turning 100 years this year. And this place started up as a hotel, a lodging house, how to say, really in 19 22, and then 23 they started with craft courses here, and it was two sisters, Selma and Wilma Långbers, who started and built up this place. And there, it is said that some of the houses that are here are original, but it was really just like a summer farm here, so no real year-round buildings. So they built up this place, and the first courses that were taught here were weaving courses. So that's kind of the oldest orientation, or to say.
Sure.
Yeah, the beginning. Yeah. And then soon after that, they started to have some woodworking as well. I'm not quite sure when that was, but some in the same era. And then things, well, 100 years passed, and the owners came and went, and the form, really as we know it today, really started around the turn of the millennia, when the sewing orientation and the blacksmith orientation started as well. And then somewhere after that, let's say 24, 23 years ago, Sätergläntan as we know it today started to take shape. But I think us blacksmiths were the last to come, so I'm it's the youngest of the courses. And to start with, 100 years ago, it was really a place where people came and lived for a while, and kind of had their long vacations and so on.
But the degree program that's run through the government started at about 24, 25 years ago,
something like that. And I know that the weaving and the woodworking were previous that as well. I'm not quite sure in exactly what form, but I think they were like 1 semester long courses, the long ones, and then a lot of short courses as well. All right.
Go to the next.
Yeah, go, please. So here we got it from above, and I'm currently sitting in the big main building in the middle there.
In the middle, there we go, with the blue door.
Yep, with the famous blue door.
It's a beautiful area. From this shot, it looks very rural. Yeah,
it is. It looks like this from every angle.
Sure.
Yeah, it's a really beautiful place. The only downside of it is that it's on the north side of this small mountain that you see. So during winter, we don't get any sunlight here at all.
Oh, that is a little bit of a downside.
Yeah. So
good for being inside and working in the studio.
Yeah. So in the end of the winter, you're standing glaring at the other side of the valley on those who have the sunlight.
Who get the sun a little bit longer. That makes sense.
But otherwise, it's a beautiful place, really.
Right.
Yeah. So here we have a bit of a close-up, and the main building in the middle is mainly like boarding rooms where people live, and also our office and the dining hall and so on. And then on behind, you see this long
here.
That's the wood house where the woodworkers workshop is, and you can barely see it, but in the corner there it's our small workshop
where the blacksmiths are. The main building, right?
Yep. A sheep.
And
And that's a I think that kind of to work from the beginning. Really, it's a common theme in all the courses here. Really.
Yes, I'm excited to hear more about that when we get to this next part, because certainly in fibercraft, saying, "Oh, we're going to start with the sheep," makes sense, and in woodcraft, saying, "Oh, we're going to start by harvesting a tree." But I think people will be really curious to hear more about what that means from a metal perspective.
Absolutely. All right, so here we got the 4 long courses or orientations, or what to say. Well, on the left, that's me standing in our workshop, and then we have the woodworking, the sewing, and the weaving. So that's the
yes, and we have one
span.
teacher from each area coming to teach on this exchange. All right, so let's get a little bit into the blacksmithing curriculum that you teach.
Yes.
What does it mean to start at the beginning?
Well, at the beginning of the year, we have a couple of weeks when we make charcoal. It's a charcoal kiln, as you see here, and a traditional version of it. And also we do make a iron production attempt.
Like a smelting.
Yeah.
Okay.
From bog ore, and using the charcoal that we have been making and so on.
And tell us more about what are the students doing here?
Right now, I think they might be starting the kiln. Really, I think they have been making a fire. There's a hole that's like a shaft down into the bottom of this pile, and they have made a fire, pushed it down the shaft, and then put in dry, really fine firewood, really to get it started and going. And when that's up and running and smoking, covering the whole area in smoke, we kind of close it almost completely, because charcoal is produced or is made when wood burns with as little oxygen as possible.
Okay.
So instead of just burning up and turning into ash, it turns into charcoal.
And what type of wood do you use to do that with?
We used to use birch, but you can really use any kind. Birch is the main, well, the best wood that we easily can get around here. It's kind of a dense wood, so it makes good charcoal.
And how long does making charcoal take for the students?
Well, this year it took forever and ever and ever. We had a magical being that did not want to die.
The proper offerings were not made, huh?
No, but there were some good attempts though on both offerings and killing it. But it just went on and on for, I don't know, a month or
a month.
Yeah, and it might be longer as well, but it was something strange with that. With that one, but a couple of weeks is
okay. And does it have to be tended to 24 hours a day, or do you just leave it alone for a while?
After a week or so, you can start to be a bit more relaxed about it, but really when it's up and going and running as at the most, it's a 24-hour attending and making sure they're not getting any big holes where oxygen can come in and make sure it kind of shrinks in evenly, really.
Sure. I could probably ask you questions about this for an hour. I think it's a really unusual thing. Certainly in the United States. Is it unusual in Sweden, or is it something that other schools do?
It's I don't think that's super unusual, but it's something that people are making mostly in this form, make mostly as a, what do you say, curiosity.
Sorry.
To reliving the past, really.
Sure. Oh, like reenact the past. Sure.
So we are a couple of schools that are doing this, and also there are a lot of like this groups that are, well, they may maybe be running a
historic.
Historic
reenactment, we would call that. Well, that's fascinating, because certainly it's something that would have been very common in the past.
Absolutely. These during the 70s, 17 and the 1800s, there were like this kind of kilns everywhere, especially around here. And there were not that much forest back then, especially around the big iron production places.
Because it had been harvested.
And then they were much bigger.
Yeah.
I think this one is we start up with like 10 cubic meters of wood, and the big ones back in the days were like 200 cubic meters.
That's huge. Think of the smoke.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it was a really industry, really.
And then the charcoal that you do make in the years when it does work, do the students use it to do a particular project then? The smelting?
Well, the smelting used to be done with this kind of charcoal, and also we use it as material, but as a fuel.
I feel like that's a cross-disciplinary piece of craft, that it can really teach you how much we get to take for granted, to really go back to the beginning. To take a bag of coal or charcoal off the shelf is very different after you've done something like this.
Yeah, you get as you said, a really good sense of what this kind of craft were back in the days when this was the only option to do it, really.
Right. Well, I will we can continue on. So now you have the charcoal, and now they get to learn to blacksmith.
Yes. So this is a glimpse of our workshop. Something is made here, not quite sure what. Maybe an axe or a hammer, might be. So we are using coal for our in our forges. So charcoal, but mostly coal and cogs, because it's convenient.
Yes.
For now, I might say. So it's and in the workshop, everyone has their own spot with their own anvil and their own fire.
And do many of your students come in with previous experience, or have they never done this before?
It's very different. It's very not different, but it depends. It's
sure. All of them.
Yeah, some have never held a hammer, but in the first year we really do start from the beginning, so it's not really an issue. But some have tried. some have been trying before and want to kind of deepen their knowledge,
their understanding.
Mm.
And what is the first thing that you make?
We start off by making a lot of like test pieces, really. It's almost almost a bit naughty of us to kind of tease people like that, but it's quite good to just start with the techniques, really. And keep the focus away from, and now I'm going to make this object and it's going to be the best object ever, and I'm going to love this for the rest of my life. So it's quite nice to really start with just techniques, small test pieces for a couple of weeks before we really start to make items. But to get to know the craft and the tools and the fire and so on.
I think many of the North House and ASI instructors hearing that are probably jealous to hear you say, we just work on techniques for weeks. That's one thing that a program like Sätergläntan can offer that
sure.
Those of us who teach much shorter classes to fit in around the rest of busy lives don't get to do. They have to, our classes tend to be more project focused, but certainly what an incredible opportunity for your students to really learn the skills.
Sure. Absolutely.
And I'm curious, what's your favorite part of teaching the blacksmithing curriculum?
Well, it's also the main luxury of teaching a program like this, that you really get to follow the students for a long time. I mean, some are here for 3 years, and you really get to kind of be a part of their journey, and that's really the best part of it, I would say.
That's great. And of course, while you're doing that, the woodworking program is happening as well.
Yep. And sometimes we do have some projects together with the woodworkers. Like last year, we made a reconstruction project when they were measuring up old boxes, chests, and the woodworkers made the wood, and the blacksmiths made the iron hinges and so on. So
that's a really cool way to work.
Absolutely. So here we got a glimpse of the woodworking workshop, and here we got one of the head teachers, Frej Lundfors, in the foreground.
And is this a summer class, a short course, do you think?
I think so, yeah. It might even be from the Telefest event. This wood carving event that has been for a couple of years here.
Sure. And this might be a good opportunity. I know many of our viewers might be curious, have heard about the short course program in the summer, which are classes structured more like you would find at North House or American Swedish Institute that are a few days long. Are there short courses in blacksmithing? There
is. We do have 3 different blacksmith courses that are 5 days each, with a bit of different focus.
Sure.
And I'm not going to have any short courses this summer, since I'm going to be away.
You'll be teaching them in Minnesota, yeah.
Yep. But my colleague Linnea is going to have one.
Yeah, so you could come and work on those yourself if you wanted. And here's the sewing program, which we've heard about.
Yep. That's their big heavy iron. It's the and the sewing program is as it is now, it's divided up in really two parts. Everyone is having the both parts, but it's traditional sewing when they're sewing by hand and using old techniques and old originals that they are looking at and so on. And then there's the modern part with when they're using sewing machines and the modern way to make patterns and clothes.
Yeah, I'm curious, before we talk about let's talk about the weaving and then I'll ask you my question.
Right, so here we got the oldest part of Sätergläntan. Weaving. This is a linen project coming up, and they are as all the other programs. They are testing a lot of techniques and materials and so on, but it would focus on the older techniques, I would say,
and also go back to the source, starting with the raw flax and spinning the thread. Each of those threads is potentially hand spun, right?
Might be. You never know.
Mind-boggling.
Yeah, absolutely. There's this. I always gets in like this big awe when I hear about the weavers project, because they are it's really a craft. And
it's the same just understanding of the material when you think of what went into each little strand, that then to make the fabric is pretty.
And so much planning ahead to get the result that you want. I think that's really impressive. And also there are dyeing their own fabrics and working with natural colors and so on.
Right.
Right. So this is from one of our rooms, or the blue hall. This does look like a summer ending, or maybe a beginning. I don't know, but a gathering.
And that's like everybody who would be on campus for the week, right?
Yeah, or for this is the full year.
The full year.
And that's Monica, our
right here.
Yeah.
The school director.
Yeah.
And I think we've talked about this in prior webinars, but your students in general are in their early to mid 20s, something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah.
From some have just finished gymnasium. Is that high school maybe?
Yeah. Yep. High school.
When they're 19 and then comes here, but some are has been working for a long time and now realize that no, this is not a thing for me, and starting.
And are they, especially the blacksmiths, what sort of things are they aspiring to do with their 2-year, or with the completion of the program at Sätergläntan?
That's a big variety, I would say. And some are just attending here for like a year or so to just, I don't know, have a break or to learn more about something else and so on, and have it like a part of their life, but more maybe as a hobby or a side job. And some do have other occupations that might be kind of lifted by having this knowledge of the specific material and so on. And some do start their own business or getting hired somewhere and work as a blacksmith. And some is becoming teachers.
Sure. Yeah, makes a lot of sense. So I see you.
That's me by the pit, teaching iron making, the old school way. And
tell us about that process.
Well, we are using bog ore that's been dug up from the ground. And it's really a really fine red brownish powder. It comes in many shapes and varieties and colors, but the stuff we are mostly using is this bog ore. And then we do see this this furnace that I'm squatting in front of.
This here?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then to the right, out of the picture, is a big bellow.
Okay.
To pump oxygen into the furnace, and then we are starting up with a good fire to get the whole furnace hot and good, and starting with filling it up with just really small pieces of or thin pieces of firewood, and let that become charcoal in the furnace. And then when that's done, we're starting to pump the bellows and adding charcoal and ore in layers. Put some charcoal in, a layer of ore, then let that go down, and then a new layer, and so on.
Okay. So another process that people have to pay attention to for.
Absolutely, it's a good full day of work. And then, if the gods want to, we're ending up with a big lump of a bloom of like raw iron and slag.
Yeah.
And this kind of production is a bit different from the modern, like blast furnace iron production. When you get a melted metal, you never get that hot in these ones. So the iron is never really melted. It just kind of lumping together in a semi-melted form, really.
Yeah.
And if the process is really good, you get a separation from the iron and the slag, because the slag is starting to melt because it has a lower melting point.
Yes.
And the slag is everything else that you don't want. It's other kind of minerals or sand or impurities in some way. Melts and turn into slag that either could be you could make a hole and let the slag go out, or you just have a deep enough furnace
that
it just kind of separates in the furnace. And some really old versions of this kind of furnaces do have kind of a chamber underneath. You have the shaft and then kind of a bottom with a hole in and a chamber underneath where the slag ends up. And
I know this process exists in lots of different ways all over the world. Is the way that you do it particular to Scandinavia or to Sweden?
I would say that this kind of furnace that we're using is not a replica, but the style of a 1700 furnace, and that kind of lived on into the 1800s as well. But the main process is really similar around the world, really. and it's been a thing around here for like 2,500 years.
A long time.
Yeah, until I think the last person who had actually been part of this tradition, he died in 1935 or something like that.
Oh my, that's more modern than I would have thought.
Yeah, but you know, some parts of Sweden were kind of. So that's a really interesting thing about this process, that it kind of lived alongside with the big industrial version for 1,000 years almost, from the early medieval times when they invented the blast furnace around to year 1100, somewhere like that, in Sweden. the oldest version, but this kind of small scale production kind of lingered on alongside with this, and often as kind of a side income for like farmers.
Oh.
And they was doing this during the winter time when there weren't that much
farming.
Yeah. And
so a blacksmith would have potentially gotten their metal from someone who wasn't a blacksmith. They didn't have to do the whole process themselves.
No.
Okay.
So this, as I would dare to say that as long as we have been doing iron production and blacksmithing in probably any part of the world really, but around here, the iron makers and the blacksmiths hasn't necessarily been the same person. So
that's fascinating.
Huh. But I would guess that in the rural areas that you made iron to sell as a source of income really, but of course they were using it for their own purposes and
whatever they needed it for, sure,
as well.
Wow, how cool to be able to connect students to just understanding what went into.
Absolutely.
Before it was even anything useful.
Yeah. And it's also a good example, this with the man dying in 35 there, and then we had kind of a distance, a kind of a cut in the tradition really, where no one was doing it. And then I would guess around maybe the 70s or something like that, when experimental archaeology became a thing. People starting to kind of revive this, or kind of getting it to the craft to exist again. And it was so hard.
Yeah,
I do know some people who was a part of that time. They were really like in the dark, even though there are a lot of books written on the subject and the manuals. This is how you do it. Punk. There are several of those books from the time when it actually was a living tradition really. But it's this fingertip feeling and the really understanding of it. When that goes away, it's so hard, and it takes so long to kind of get that back. Yeah, and I think it's a really good lesson to learn. You can document how much you want, but if no one is there to tell you, but when it sounds like this, it's this, probably that.
Then it's that is, I think the academics in English call that tacit knowledge. All of the other things surrounding a craft that you can't write down, the finger feel, the sound, the sensory experience, and that it doesn't take, you can lose that in a generation.
Yeah, absolutely.
It makes places like Sätergläntan and I'll even be bold and say North House,
absolutely,
and the American Swedish Institute, so important. Of course, these things, you can watch videos on YouTube, but it's not, there's so much that's still lost. Wow.
Mm.
So, and then who is this in the other photo?
Yes,
Mhm.
on our left here is Linnea Lindgren, my good colleague,
Mhm.
who is a blacksmith, obviously, and have her own workshop a bit south from here.
Mhm.
She has been working with me here for this year, and to be from this year and beyond.
Mhm. And so I'm curious, certainly your curriculum takes things all the way back to making charcoal and smelting and skills. When your students go on to, in the second and third year, be able to choose their own interests and projects, what sort of things do they choose to make?
It does depend on the student, but it's a big varies a lot, of course. But
are they often historic replicas or?
that's quite common. Well, many, not all, but many who attend these courses do have some kind of historical like interest, or have some. Otherwise, they won't be here, I guess. But
yeah.
But it's all from tools, or more leaning against like art and that world. So there, and everything in between. And some are trying to really make their own like style and like form language, while others is more interesting in like learning the old styles from this or that time period.
And you're able to support that whole range of options at the school.
I would say so.
That's really unique to be able to do that.
I
think we're getting close to the end of the slides, but let's get through these and then we can take some questions from the audience.
Yes. I did throw in this. It's a sketch for a charcoal kiln of the standing sort. There are a lot of different ways to do this, of course. Some with the logs lying down and some with them standing up. Depending on what age or what the place and so on. And all have throughout history and on all places have been convinced that their way to do it is the best, and everything else is, well, you know how it is.
Yes, we humans are usually convinced we've got it all figured out. Do you build the same kind every year with your students, or do you change it?
We do. We have been doing this kind. I don't think there have been any other versions, because they are bad.
Because this one usually works.
Yeah, it does.
All right.
And well, as you can see, there are logs and like smaller logs in the middle, and bigger in between, and then smaller ones again in the outer layers. And then there are when everything is standing up, and in the middle there's kind of a big pole. There are knocked down and is secured in the ground, kind of a support. And it's called the king sometimes. And then we do have the shaft, this light area, in the middle, where you put down where you start the fire, really. And there are a lot of different ways to do. Some have a kind of a small sledge and more of a tunnel in from the side, and some of the more modern version of this do have a chimney in one end to kind of have more of a draft. But then anyhow, there are these logs, small trees, and then on this we use spruce twigs or spruce with the needles and all as a support on the outside, and then dirt and
to close it. Yes.
Yeah. And make it, and then it do have this kind of down on the nearest the ground. There are holes for to get some air in.
Sure, some airflow.
Yeah, and it doesn't show on this picture, but you usually make kind of a floor that you build up, that all the logs are standing on, so you got kind of a hollow space underneath, so you can get like air in from underneath. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And how long does it take to construct it before you start the process?
We used to start. We do have some in the first week. We do have this like slöjdstationer, like stations when everyone is moving around and getting to try a lot of different stuff. And one of these stations is to start to build the kiln. The kiln. And there we start, and then we used to be almost ready, at least with the putting in the logs, the wood. And then they are using a couple of days during the kiln week to get it ready and get it started in the middle of that week.
And then it takes a couple of weeks usually, not beyond that. So the first month almost.
Yeah.
Okay. Well.
And then I take turns of sitting up a couple of hours during the night and watch it. And that used to be a really really special thing to do.
I would imagine.
When you're sitting there in the dark with a campfire and
yeah, getting to know your fellow students. I bet that's a pretty special.
Absolutely. This is a really make or break point for for the group. Most often a make. But you get to work together in a really special way, and it's really good. This early in the year.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to do that kind of community group project.
Yeah,
it's pretty important. Yeah.
Because mostly they are working like with their own projects. We do have some collaborations, cooperation projects, but mostly you're working with your own stuff.
And I think that's one of the challenges that a lot of people who choose to make a living in craft kind of deal with, is that, and it's one of the things that drives people that I work with to teach, because they say, I like doing my work, but being by myself in the studio, sometimes I need to go be with other people. And so having opportunity to do that.
Absolutely so. Yeah.
All right.
Here
we are.
Yes, and here we do have a picture of the iron bloom, the raw iron and slag lump.
From the smelt. Yeah.
From the
Wow.
And
how heavy is something like that?
Somewhere around 3 kilos, I would say. What that is in. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You don't want to drop it on your toe for several reasons.
Yep. As a newborn baby, one can say.
Sure. Okay.
That's right.
Yeah, 7-8 pounds.
Yeah. Here we do have another picture of Linnea in one of our in our workshop. Should I tell you a bit about the more about the course, or do we have to?
Sure. Let's see. We have some time, about 5 more minutes to finish up. So if folks have questions, please put them in the question and answer here. So let's see, we'll go. What is the max number of students that you have in your class? How many stations do you have?
We do have 16 stations.
16. That sounds noisy.
Yeah, it is, but it's this workshop is more almost as a maze with a lot of rooms and corridors and stuff.
Yeah.
But we do have we have the big workshop with 8 stations, and then we have a kind of a side room, or what to say for that, with four more, and then on the other side of the workshop we do have four more, so they are kind of spread out. Yeah. And it does depend. We do have 16 stations and room for 16 students, and that is it depends on how many who attending the first and the second and the third year, depending on how many that have been that have passed and want to go to the next year.
Sure. How many openings you have in each?
Yeah. So we have kind of a dynamic admission. Could you say that?
Yeah.
So right now we do have a lot of second years.
A good cohort, we might say. Yeah. Another question, thanking you for the presentation, and also curious if there are people from countries and cultures besides Sweden who participate in your program.
There is. At the moment, we do have, beside a bunch of Swedes, of course, we do have people from Denmark, France, United States, and Germany.
Yes. And the language of instruction is Swedish because it's a Swedish school, but...
Well, we do speak English.
Yes.
Kind of English at least.
Yeah.
So that's the main language is Swedish for reasons and other stuff, and most of the lectures during the years, beside the crafts, there are a lot of like lectures in culture, history, and subjects that kind of builds on to the knowledge and the to know what we're doing and why, and so on.
Sure. And there's more than just steps 1 through 7. Absolutely.
And most of those classes are in Swedish.
Sure. But it is not uncommon to have students from other who don't speak Swedish, or...
No, it's not uncommon.
Well, it sounds like there'll be a student, a friend of a student at this presentation applying for next year. So that's exciting.
Yeah. Great.
Let's see, in just our last couple of minutes, let's highlight there is still room in your course at the American Swedish Institute. What are you teaching in the 2-day course there?
I am going to teach making a fire striker or fire steel. So it's a kind of a two-step program, or what to say. When we are going to start with in the forge making the fire strikers or the fire steels, and then going for a half day back at the ASI and have a fire making course. where I
Great.
will tell and show and instruct in how to do this, and you get
And
to.
for those of you thinking, I've been to the American Swedish Institute and they do not have forges there,
No?
you are correct. This is a really wonderful partnership with the Chicago Fire Arts Center, another awesome educational nonprofit in the Twin Cities. And so this class will be in part, the forging part will happen at the Fire Arts Center.
Yep.
The fire building part will happen at ASI.
Yep.
And then at North House, you're teaching braising cowbells.
Yes, this with the sound of the Swedish summer farm forest.
Wonderful.
We're going to make cowbells, or livestock bells, really, out of sheet metal, and then pack it into a clay lump, along with some brass, and then heat it up and make the brass melt and cover the whole bell.
We're this class is full with a waiting list, but it isn't a very long waiting list. So if it's up your alley, put your name on the waiting list, because things happen. And if you aren't able to do that, you should still come to the wooden boat show at North House, because Johan and his colleagues will be demonstrating there, and you'll be able to hear the cowbells and chat with Johan and see some demonstrations during that time. That is June 14, 15, 16. It's open to the public. We'll be having a 100th anniversary pie social on the harbor on Friday night. So we're excited for folks to be able to do that. And then the Nordic Center in Duluth will also be hosting a public event with our guests on June 21st on proper midsummer. So lots of great opportunities for people who are interested to connect with our guests. And I think that kind of wraps it up. Mickey, is there anything you need to add?
No, I think you did a great job covering everything. So the one class that has an opening is our Saturday, Sunday session on the 24th and 25th of June. So I linked that above, and we'll also include that in the follow-up with the recording we send out after.
Wonderful.
Come and see me then.
Yeah, well, we're so excited to welcome you to Minnesota. And again, a huge thanks to the folks at the American Swedish Institute and our funding partner, the American Scandinavian Foundation. And we wish everyone a wonderful afternoon, and hopefully we'll see you in June. Take care.
Hej då.